Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. Bruce, what's going on, man? How are you?
Oh, you know.
Oh, is that good?
Well, I rectum sore.
Oh, I rectum sore.
Yeah.
That's a new one. I don't think you've dusted that one off for me before.
All right. Don't get hot.
I rectum sore. Okay. Well, today we're doing something kind of fun. We're going to be knocking down a Ask Bruce Anything. Are you nervous, anxious, excited? None of that? All that?
None of that.
Before we get going, I feel like we should acknowledge that a fella that you've had some good times with over the years recently passed away. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, my good friend Dusty Hill from ZZ Top left us this past week. And, it's a funny story about Dusty because in 1985, I guess it was, or maybe 84, the Fantastics were in Houston. They were using Sharp Dressed Man, and Dusty had called and asked for some tickets to the show. I got him tickets to the show, and became friendly with Dusty a little bit. And then as I went on to the then WWF, Dusty would come to the shows in the Summit, and we got to be friendly back and forth, and we'll always talk and go to their shows. He'd come to our shows, and I never really, ever got to meet Billy Gibbons. And then as years went on, I kind of lost touch with Dusty. And then I became friends with Billy. And it was funny how, the everything kind of happened, and then they didn't speak for a long time, and they got shared a common interest in WWE. And we got them, I think, in Oak City or Tulsa, one of the two. And they came to the show and sat next to each other and found a common love for what we do. And I started talking again and made the touring life a little bit easier. But great guy, incredible musician. His contributions can't be denied. And it was kind of a bummer. It was kind of a bummer because I was in the middle of a meeting and got that text. And when it just happened, I was like, wow, this really sucks. So Godspeed, Dusty, and his music will live on forever, man, because he was undeniable in his greatness.
Well, I think everybody who listens to this show knows that we have a ZZ Top song as our theme song. And I don't know, a big part of your life for a long time, and he will be missed.
Yes, he will.
We've had an interesting week or so here in professional wrestling. So now seems as good a time as any to do an Ask Bruce Anything. Let's jump right into it. SSW Media wants to know, after listening to Bret's 1993 at King of the Ring, they teased the DQ and restart in the Hart final. In the Yoko Hogan match, they let the finish stand when we all saw the exploding camera. And after the match, there was no mention of the fireball by Okerlund or Tunney. What's up with that?
But the referee didn't see it.
There we go.
Okay, see, man, look, the referee has final word. If the referee doesn't see it, they can't call what they don't see. That's what we teach people, like in karate, because I'm a 4-time black belt Hall of Famer.
Right.
You teach the referees, you can't call what you don't see. You may hear something, but by God, you don't know if that was a point or not, so you can't call it. Referee can't call. You may hear a fireball. You may smell burning flesh. And what happened? My thing just went away. Everything went dead.
I'm still here.
Hello?
We're still talking.
I'm not.
You're not hearing.
I just hit this and it comes back. What the fuck did I do?
Are you all right?
Where the hell was I? But you can smell burning flesh. You can smell hair, and by God, and see a bright light behind you. But for all I know, it was an exploding light. A simple, who knows? But you didn't see a fireball hit a big blonde, sweaty guy with blonde hair. As a referee.
I don't know what was more fascinating, your answer or that you got lost in the middle of it and said, wait a minute, where did everybody
I got
go?
lost in the middle of it because I couldn't hear myself anymore. And then I hit the thing, and then all of a sudden I heard myself again. And, you know, I promise I'm going to get a new one of these things one day.
Dismal Abysmal wants to know, none of the modern day in-ring interview segments seem to have the same feel or impact as Piper's Pit, Barbershop, Funeral Parlor, or even the Heartbreak Hotel. Would Bruce like to see a separate out-of-ring arena interview set make a comeback?
Well, first of all, I'll take offense that Brother Love Show wasn't mentioned in there.
Well, I think he knew that one. We all know that was the very best one, right?
No, I think Piper's Pit was the very best one, but I think the Brother Love was probably second. And the rest of them were just But I think that with the right talent, yeah, I think that would be something that overall done correctly and in the right way. Yeah. But the problem became, and I think that Brother Love in particular was good because Brother Love didn't work. And there was, my only job was to get people over. My only job was to tell the story, their story, not mine. So when you have a talent that's involved in other things and involved in a story all the time, they're getting themselves over. That's what they want to do. So you have to have that right mix, and you have to have the right talent that knows how to get other people over. Piper was able to accomplish both. Because Roddy just went out like, I'm over already. I don't need to do anything to get over. Yeah, I'll give you some help. And with me, it was, hey, I was just there to get him over. I never saw myself anything beyond that.
Lindsay writes, sitting at Gorilla all those years, have you noticed any talent that have certain superstitions or ritual things they do before they go through the curtain?
Yeah, there's certain ones. Charlie Haas and Jerry Briscoe always had a little ritual to remember Charlie's brother Russ. And, there are guys that do the sign of the cross before they go out. There's, guys that have to get them pump themselves up and slap themselves in the face and that kind of stuff. So it just really, really depends on who it is and what they're doing.
Let's do another one here from Luke from Eastern Iowa. He says, in Vince's performance of Stand Back, besides Hogan on bass, could any of the wrestlers actually play instruments?
Well, you saw him playing, didn't you?
Oh, geez.
Did you see him playing? See, let's go back to the referee thing for a minute. Hello? Oh, shit. Let me get this.
All right, back at it. So, Bruce, serious business. Do you know of any wrestlers who had musical talents like in real life? I feel strongly that saving money is important. If it's not something we worry about now, boy, we are really going to worry about it later. And I want to help you get out of debt faster and do it with cheaper monthly payments. I'm talking to you if you're in a 30-year loan. Now is the time to take years off of your loan. We're routinely helping our listeners cut 5, 10, even 15 years off their loan. And you can do this without perfect credit with no money out of pocket. You've just got to start at savewithconrad.com. Pretend the stand back thing isn't a thing. Like, We know Hogan played bass. Did you know of any other guys who could play an instrument?
Let me see. That actually did during that time. I think Coco Beware played piano.
Maybe not just that time, anytime, like wrestlers and musical talent. And don't say like, man,
Xavier Woods plays trombone.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks for that.
He really does. But yeah, there's a lot of guys that have musical talent. Jimmy Hart, without a doubt. Jimmy plays pretty much all the instruments.
Boy, you're giving all the trade secrets today, man.
But well, goddamn, the ones that do, you know.
Charlie Thrower wants to know, Mr. Prichard, was there any pushback from Hasbro over Slaughter's Iraqi turn? Secondly, were there any other talents besides Sarge to become an action figure / character for G.I. Joe? I think Roddy Piper, and that's probably it, right?
Yeah, I think that is it. You know, the G.I. Joe folks, they were already in with Sarge, so they'd already done their Sergeant Slaughter stuff. And after the fact, I don't know that there were too many people that were really enamored. By God, I want an Iraqi sympathizer action figure. I don't know that was a bestseller in any way, stretch, or form. So,
what about, pushback from any other toy companies like G.I. Joe for the whole Sergeant Slaughter thing? Anybody at all that you know of have any sort of pushback on an angle?
We didn't push that hard on it. You know, I think there was a little pushback on Brother Love back in the day, just because they felt that there was a bit of religious connotation to it.
Wait, time out. Do you think that's why? I knew you were going to go to Snow next, but on the Brother Love thing, do you think that's why there wasn't a Brother Love character or a figure released, because of the controversy or potential controversy?
Yeah, there were a few reasons why, but I think that was definitely one of them from a broad-based marketing standpoint. Yes.
Can you give us any other reasons why?
Because people didn't like me.
Well, that's not exactly a secret. So,
hey, you know what, man? I got feelings. Inside deep where it counts.
Not a lot of them, though.
No, not a lot of them, but I got.
Wait, are you doing it again?
Yes, I'm doing it again.
Ladies and gentlemen, he has a Diet Coke and a Diet Pepsi back to back again. I don't understand what we're doing.
Why not? And
a Gatorade Zero.
Yeah.
All the brands are equally represented.
See, because the Diet Coke gives me gas, a little gassy, so like I kind of got a burp because the gaseal fumes and gaseal part of the gas comes out of there, and then the Gatorade kind of calms it down.
I feel like this is you explaining storylines. What about the head thing? I remember the head thing being an issue with Al Snow's quote unquote action figure with Walmart, right? And there were probably a few other retailers who had an issue with it.
Yeah, it was crazy because they thought that it was violence towards women because it was a severed woman's head. No, it wasn't. It was a mannequin head that talked to Al. So those that didn't understand the character itself thought that it was promoting violence to women and severing their heads. It's like, no, unless you look at, headless mannequins as violence to women that we're trying to sell to women that they look better without a head.
Oh,
okay. You want to go there? Then we go there. That's what a mannequin is.
That's a tough sell.
Thank you. I thought that, some of those were silly. Other than that, man, not really.
What's the worst shirt you remember y'all selling? Like maybe it's not one that got pulled from a retailer, but one like the semen dripping Val Venus shirt, or the always pounding ass APA shirt, or that Kalisto shirt that looked like he had a heart on. There's been some regrettable. Was there one that you're like, oof, that's the worst one?
Well, I'll tell you the worst ones that we ever did was, and I'll go back to Mid-South when we started getting the merchandise. And one thing that Vince did early on was in his merchandising, there were very few. So if you had a Hulk Hogan shirt, they existed, but the best selling one was Hulkamania.
Right.
It wasn't a picture of Hulk.
Yes.
On the shirt. Jake the Snake was a logo with a snake. Macho Man was Macho Man. And you had the image of Savage inside, but you had to know what the hell you were looking at to really catch that image of Randy in the glasses. Piper, Hot Rod. So there weren't pictures of the guys on them. And I remember when we took over the merchandising for Mid-South Sports and UWF, I wanted to do some new shirts, and Bad Street USA was an example of what I thought a cool shirt was.
Right.
Just the logo, dude. And I got to tell you a story after this, but so it was like Bill was like, "No, you got to have pictures of the guys," and I did a gray shirt with just Ted DiBiase's head on it. And it was the ugliest, stupidest, shittiest shirt that I had ever seen in my life. And to this day, every time I think of ugly, bad shirts, I think of the Ted DiBiase gray shirt with just his head on it. And it was, I think we sold one, maybe.
We sold one.
Absolutely terrible, but yeah, those are horrible, absolutely horrible. And I can look at it, and that was one that I did just to kind of, okay, Bill, here you go. Here's our top baby face with his picture on it, and didn't sell for shit. Nothing. It was horrible. Like Dr. Death, dude, cool logo says Dr. Death, not a picture of Doc. Who wants to wear a picture of Doc's face on their shirt?
Right.
So yeah, it was kind of the shits. So this is horrible to tell. Don't anybody do this either.
Uh-oh.
So I'm talking to a friend of mine, and he says, he goes, hey, you remember how like guys would go and see the What's Up guys and the commercials and everything, and they're like, oh hey man, you're the What's Up, and do that shit. Well, so Michael Hayes is telling this story about how now people just point at him and look at him and go, oh, you're the dude guy. Hey, dude man. Oh, dude. And so.
And he gets annoyed by that?
I think he finds the humor in it now. I think there was a time of annoyment. Anointment, is that right? That's
one of the
word. I don't think it fits in this particular situation.
Years ago, when it first started to pick up steam, when you started doing it here on the show, I got a call from him. Hey, I want you to know I don't appreciate that. I'm like, what? You and Bruce on your little show, all this doot shit. I never even said doot. I don't say dude. I ain't never said dude. I'm like, no, he didn't say you said it. Yes, he did say it. No, he didn't, Michael. Michael, he said if your walk made a sound, and he didn't even say it. Brian did, and we just retold the story that your gait, your like cadence with which you walk, if it made a sound, doot, fuck you. So that was the way the call went.
Yeah, I had one of those too. That was a lot of fun.
Brett,
did you listen to the show, Michael, by any chance?
No.
I don't listen to that shit.
Well, I wouldn't even know how to do it. A podcast. I'm fucking busy. I got shit to do.
I gotta go get a massage.
I ain't gonna listen to that. I lived it. Shit.
Shit.
I did like about, maybe it was 2 years after we did it, he listened to our Michael P.S. Hayes episode and then starts group texting us late at night one night. That was wrong. And there's no context. He didn't say what we said was wrong. Just, he thought we could be.
Is it we're doing it live for Michael at 3:00 in the morning, and we're saying this, and we're anxiously awaiting, looking at our text messages. Yep, that was wrong. No. That was 83. That wasn't 84.
Didn't happen like that, Bruce, and you knowed it.
No, wrong guy. Like, what the fuck is up? Yeah.
We have just
you engaged him.
Well, because it was funny, because I was like, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? Don't act like
what's going on the other end. I know what's happening on the other end.
I did not. I had not put two and two together, and it was hysterical because I was a step behind. Like, Michael, it's late. I don't know what's going. What are you talking about? You know what you did.
Right.
It ain't right. It's wrong.
Yes.
Brad writes, whose idea was it for Kane to take off his mask in June of 2003?
That was, we were looking at what to do next with Kane, and Vince was thinking, well, shit, man, let's take off his mask. And when we started talking about that, we started talking about, well, what does he look like with the mask off? And wondering, then my sick mind kind of took over as far as what if, you know, we could simulate, the burns on his face, and he has this really screwed up haircut, where from the horrid fire that he was in, that his hair wouldn't grow back in certain places. And we start, shaving his head a little bit in Madison Square Garden. And I start really messing with it bad. And Glenn's looking at me like, Bruce, you're fucking with me. I said, no, really, man, I think this is going to be cool. And I think it was really cool for the first time shock factor. But I don't think that Glenn's lovely wife, Crystal, who is an extremely lovely woman, one of the nicest people that you would ever want to meet, she didn't care for it too much, and that was enough for me. I said, okay, we'll change it up a little bit. So you can just shave it and then let it grow out for TV, and then we can mess it up a little bit when we get to TV, and then shave it again when you go home. So you're somewhat normal when you go home.
Brian writes, when new wrestlers enter the locker room in a new territory, do they introduce themselves as their working name or real name? Also, do they call other wrestlers by their working name when they met them?
It depends. It depends on who you are and who you're talking to. Some guys do, some guys don't. I think that it is common courtesy when you walk into any room where you don't know people. And let's say, for example, you walk into a meeting in your office, and there are people in the meeting that you don't know. But you're walking in the meeting. Walk around the room and introduce yourself. Say, hey, I'm Joe Beavens. How you doing? I'm Matt Burns. Just introduce yourself. I think that's just common courtesy that is lost in this generation of people that, well, I'm here, so they should assume they know who the hell I am and why I'm here. But introduce yourself. Tell people what you do. Hey, what do you do, man? How can we help each other? Because we're obviously in the same meeting together, so we're going to be talking about stuff. I'd love to know, what side of the table you're on and where you're coming from. So yes, walking into the locker room, I do think it's important. Most times, new guys would walk around just for nothing else other than to introduce themselves and say, hey, Joe Beavens.
My Destiny writes, looking back, if Goldberg had been in WWE during his undefeated streak, which Attitude Era superstar would have been the perfect guy to end the streak? Also, which Attitude Era superstar would have been perfect to go on a streak like that?
To go on a streak, it probably would have been Big Show. At the time the Big Show came in, but to end the streak, I think that you're looking at guys like Rock, you're looking at guys like Austin, or guys like Triple H, Undertaker, stuff like that. I think would have been perfect ones to end the streak of Goldberg.
I can't argue that. Dave,
streak versus streak with Undertaker would have been nice.
Oh, that could have been fun.
Yeah.
Dave McClay wants to know, who would Bruce like to see induct Brother Love into the WWE Hall of Fame?
Well, that's one of those things that will never happen.
But hypothetically, if it did, if it did though, I mean, who was most synonymous with that set, the Brother Love character? I mean, would it be the Undertaker? Would it be Hulk Hogan? Who do you think?
Well, I think that probably Undertaker or Jerry Briscoe, just from a personal side of things, and or Vince. And again, that would never happen. So, back in the day, if he were still alive, I would have. Bobby Heenan would have been the perfect guy.
Oh wow, that would
just because of how close we were and how much he helped me with that character and how much we did on camera as well.
Kyle wants to know, was Vince in the boiler room for the match shot for SummerSlam 96, or did he just trust Taker and Mick and he just let them go?
Well, my God, that boiler room is a really dark, disgusting, dirty place. No, we were outside watching the monitor. Nobody was in there but them.
So
we knew, yeah, we had been, I remember I had gout that day.
Oh.
And we went in and shot it, and it was pretty tight confines, so nobody could really be in there. But we shot it, we walked through it, and there you go. It's a boiler room, boys. Go. Ding, ding, ding.
Colby says, I've asked a few times, hoping it gets picked. Can Bruce share any examples of a referee screwing up a match? Not just a minor goof, but where one tanked a finish or even impacted an angle. Pretty famous story that happened a few years ago at StarCast, where there was a story about Ted DiBiase Jr., quote unquote, not kicking out and a referee counting him 3 after there'd been a big meeting. Hey, we can't continue to embarrass the referees, so if you don't kick out, they're going to count you down. So Ted DiBiase Jr. did kick out, but the referee still counted 3, and there was a big hullabaloo because this long match was now a short match. Was there ever a more significant example of that, do you think?
One time they had twin referees, but that was because Ted DiBiase spent millions and millions of dollars on plastic surgery to get twin referees to go in and count down Hulk Hogan's shoulders. Of significance, no. I can't really recall one that just sticks out. And yeah, there have definitely been times where guys haven't kicked out. I remember in Houston a long time ago, Moondog Maine, Lonnie Maine, working with Jose Lothario, and Moondog got up on the top rope, came off the top rope, and allegedly Moondog had been tipping the old canoe during the day and during the night, and was a bit inebriated and knocked himself out. And Moondog was supposed to go over on that night, but Jose had no choice but to cover him. The referee had no choice but to count 1, 2, 3 because he wasn't moving. Then they called the ambulance and brought him in, and he had just knocked himself out and was drunk as a skunk. Things like that, yeah. I remember, okay, I've told the story about the first time that I ever refereed a match where it was Jose Lothario versus Gino Hernandez. It was the main event of the show, but there was no other match in the dressing room. So we had to start with the main event. Now I'm terrified as a referee. I've got to go out there and referee this 2 out of 3 fall match with Gino Hernandez and Jose Lothario, the biggest, draw in the territory at the time. And I'm 16. Yeah, I think I'm smart. I know what's going on. The promoter goes over and tells Jose, says, Jose, tell Bruce what you guys are going to do. Give him the finish. And Jose looks at me and says, I'll take the first fall, Scrizoo the second fall to Gino, Scrizoo the third fall to me. All right. I had no idea what the fuck he just said.
Right.
So I go out and referee the match. Jose wins the first fall. Gino wins the second fall. And we get to the third fall, and Jose wraps Gino up, puts his feet on the ropes, and I count 1, 2, and I saw his feet on the ropes. Being the good referee that I was, I caught him. And I said, your feet are on the ropes, man. Break it up. And I got the stare of death from Super Sock Jose Lothario. And in that moment, and in that single stare, I realized, ruh-roh, I screwed up. And so we went on with the match, and Jose did something else and went to cover Gino over by the corner and looked at me. Jose just looked at me and said, count to 3. And I put my head down and I counted 1, 2, 3. By God, I didn't look up, and Jose won. That's when I learned that that goddamn Gino Hernandez cheated to win the second fall. Just turns out I was a shitty referee because I didn't have a clue that Gino had cheated to win the second ball. Yeah. It happens, man. Okay. It happens.
Anthony writes, I'd love to hear the whole story about the Nasty Boys incident in Peoria, Illinois. I had a couple friends that went to that event and would love to hear what happened and what the aftermath was.
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
I think there was a stabbing. Maybe this happened.
The Nasty Boys stabbed? I have no idea at all. Or the Nasty Boys got stabbed? I don't know. Sorry.
There was, I think it happened at a red light. It was a series of cars involved. And anyway, I think,
wasn't there. I don't know. No.
It's true. It was 92. You weren't there, but I didn't know if maybe you had heard the story. Cause usually, I mean, you know more about the Orange Sid stabbing and you weren't there either.
Yeah, I wasn't there for that. I just told you what I heard, but I don't even remember hearing about this.
Chase Hernandez writes, if Bruce had to have been at one of the big four shows he missed early in the 90s, which one would he have preferred to have been at the most? And what was something that he would have pitched differently? So we'll answer that one piece at a time. You know, you missed a lot of the big 92 shows. So you missed like SummerSlam 91 and you missed SummerSlam 92, which I think you probably would have wanted to be at, but you also missed Royal Rumble 92, WrestleMania 8. Is there one where you're like, man, if I could go back and still work with the company to help put together that, would it have been WrestleMania 8? Would it have been SummerSlam 92? Would it have been the 92 Rumble? What do you think?
It would have been the Rumble where Flair went all the way through.
92. Yeah.
And then WrestleMania 8 would be second.
I just assumed you would have loved SummerSlam 92 because you would have gotten the big stadium show and across the pond. That would have been
great. Yes. I mean, that I would have loved that, to have that feel in England and everything. But I think that the laying out, when you look at the actual event, that Rumble to me would have been so much fun to work on.
Oh, so many Hall of Famers, and what a cool finish.
Yeah. You know, I would have loved to have helped lay that match out and be able to be a part of that. That was really, really cool. And then WrestleMania 8, just again, from the potential of it. I'm not sure that it would have had Hulk and Sid, at least not in that incarnation. I think that either you would have put the championship on Sid and gone with Sid and Hulk. You would put the championship on Sid at the Royal Rumble, or you go with Hogan and Flair. But I don't know that I would have had the matchups. I think, you know, hindsight being 2020. But then again, you know, they'd had Hulk and Flair and it didn't draw. So I could see why they didn't do that. But I think that it was a different chase. And Hogan chasing at that time, I think, could have been interesting.
If you would have done another angle, you know, you pitched before, you like the idea of maybe the Papa Shango thing. If he had voodoo dolls, like, you know, that could have been a fun thing. Do any other ideas like that pop up when you're at home watching and you think, oh man, that would have been cool if we could have done XYZ?
You know who I like, man? Yes, and I love Papa Shango. But I also really liked Big Bully Busick.
Wow, that's a name I didn't expect to hear.
Because it was different.
Yeah.
He looked different. He looked like a real tough guy, man. He looked like one of those old bare-knuckle barroom brawlers.
Yeah.
And I thought there was so much you could do with a bully. And I thought that Nick played it to the T, but there was just something missing with Nick. He couldn't take it beyond the gimmick. You know what I mean? He couldn't get it all done in the ring. And I just was always intrigued by his gimmick. And the other one was Nails. It would have been great to have had a guy that could really work that gimmick.
Yeah.
And it was a cool story. And you know, it worked. I just wish that, you know, Nails could have gone a lot further and had maybe someone else to portray that character. Would have been neat.
Here's one from J.M. Wagner. If Bret Hart would have shown up at WrestleMania 22, What do you think the possibility of him doing a run-in during the Shawn Michaels Vince McMahon match could have been, like Roddy Piper did during WrestleMania 19 for Hogan and Vince? That could have been interesting if he would have actually attended.
Yeah, that was the one where Bret came in and either got inducted in the Hall of Fame.
That's right.
Or we did Stu. That was when we inducted Bret, right?
Yes.
Detroit?
Yes.
Okay. It would have been great. Would love to have been able to do it. And I know Bret had other commitments that Bret couldn't stay. So it was unfortunate. I don't know if Bret was at the right place in his life that he would have wanted to do something like that at that time. There was still a little bit more healing to go, and there was that was the first step, and there were baby steps to get beyond that. But that would have been cool as shit. And Piper was something that was a last minute nobody knew.
Yeah.
I made a phone call and said, "Hey Vince, man, come on, we're in Seattle. Portland is right there. And two biggest rivals, Hogan and Piper, what if type thing." And he said, "Well, see what Roddy's doing." And it went from a phone call to Roddy, "What are you doing? Hey, would you like to do this?" to, "Can you be here tomorrow?" And Roddy drove in from Portland, met him downstairs in the loading dock. Tom and I put a hoodie on him and walked him up to his room and locked him in his room. And same thing, we went up, got him in his room, put the hoodie on him, got him into the building. People thought Roddy was just there to say hello. That was pretty cool.
It's such a cool idea to think about Shawn showing up at WrestleMania 22. I do want to mention, you mistakenly said Detroit. That show was actually in Chicago at the Allstate Arena.
In Chicago, that's right.
But still, that is when Bret was the headliner. And I know they all run together, but I just know we'll get tweets, so I'm trying to preemptively state
I misspoke, folks. Sorry, I'm getting older now. I misspeak sometimes.
Hey.
I'm always right, but sometimes I misspeak.
Boy, that sounds like my dad right there. Hey, chat me up about big shows you were a part of. This isn't a question that's on our Ask Bruce Anything. I just want to ask a question because you referenced a minute ago.
Did you send it in the proper channels?
Yes. Conrad from Huntsville wants to know, when you look back at cause I was saying, hey, it would have been cool for you to attend the SummerSlam 92 thing just because it was such a monster crowd and such a historic. I mean, our fans across the pond, every time we made a shot over there, did a show over there, asked questions, they always want to talk about SummerSlam 92. So it clearly left a big impression, but it was such a spectacle to look at visually too. Could you name in no particular order, maybe like your top 5 most impressive spectacle looking venues or crowds or just circumstance? Not necessarily who was the hottest or who was the loudest, but one where you walk out and you're like, holy shit, this is like, you guys did the Saudi shows, and I bet that was an experience. And as you've been all over the world, you've been to Japan and blah, blah, blah. Were there a handful that really stick out to you just as a fan, as a guy who you're like, damn.
I tell you, one of the first ones that comes to mind is when we did in Boston Square, the deal with Tyson and the public workout with DX and Stone Cold, and expecting a few thousand people to show up at lunch and go out there and all of a sudden you're surrounded by 20,000 people or whatever it is. That was cool because there was just an air of electricity that no one imagined that many people were going to come out at noon on a Wednesday or Thursday in the middle of the week to come and see this spectacle, and turned into this really cool deal. When we went public on Wall Street and put a ring in the middle of Wall Street had never been closed down before, and to be able to do that and look around, and as far as the eye could see, people, Times Square, that kind of shit, in the middle of Times Square at lunch at noon, and to have people just shutting down Broadway. Then you go to, as crazy as it sounds, if you had seen the stadium arena for WrestleMania 9 at Caesars, it looked like a high school football stadium. And we dressed it to look like a Roman Coliseum. And the fact that it looked as good as it did, and you look at it now and go, compared to some of the things we've done now, But if you had seen it before, oh my God, it was night and day. And that was a hell of a spectacle with the elephants and the menagerie of animals and people and everything. That was pretty cool. There have been so many that are unique. Those are the ones that, I sit back and go, God, man, you remember the time that we did, Penn Station, or that we did Denim and Diamonds in San Antonio. Just for whatever it was so bizarre to have a ring in the middle of this country and western club, and it was the perfect setting. It just worked. So, that kind of stuff. The Intrepid, July 4th, the Body Slams Challenge with Yokozuna. And they asked, how many people. We're like, oh, man, we'll probably have about maybe 1,000 people. And next thing you know, you've got estimates of, you got 7,000 people out there, guys. We can't allow all these people on the boat. And then people start dropping because of the heat. And it was incredible. But those kind of spectacles to me were the ones that were most memorable. A big arena. Yeah, Houston, WrestleMania 17. That was my hometown. So that was me performing in front of 70,000 people or whatever the hell it was. That was surreal and a moment that I thought was a dream.
Chris writes, following WrestleMania 9, if Vince called Bruce in his office and said, hey pal, I need you to book a feud between Bret and Hulk. You can do whatever you want, but it has to end by WrestleMania 10. How would you book it?
Well, I think I would have probably turned Hulk heel.
Wow.
If I could have done anything I wanted to do, I would have turned Hulk heel. And I think that by turning Hulk heel and having a jealous and bitter Hulk would have made Bret the super baby face that I think it would have got him there a lot quicker. But I would have had a bitter, nasty Hulk Hogan. Jealous.
What could have been? Michael writes, I was in Florida for a house show, and the only thing I remember was my dad saying, this guy again, referring to the Sultan coming out for his 4th match of the night. Was this common practice, or was this to try to reshoot TV? So the idea is it's a TV taping, and I guess obviously TV tapings are certainly done not for the house, but for the camera. And you're going to, have probably 4 weeks of TV there if you saw him 4 times. But how often would you, like percentage wise, would you do a reshoot on a TV taping?
Very seldom, but you were doing 3 and 4 weeks sometimes at a time in one night.
Right.
So a new talent you may want to get out, every other week or sometimes every week. It depends on who it was. So yeah, they would get, you would get pretty sick of some talent if they were coming out multiple times. I tell you what, man, by the 3rd or 4th time my music hit in a night, I was like, oh God, not him again. Please.
Charlie Thrower says, Mr. Prichard, can you explain how Dr. Tom became a doctor?
Yes. Well, see, there was this medical school. All right. And they had a pharmacy, and there was a little mix up in the pharmacy, and they needed a doctor, and Tom was able to step in, and all that happened. Do you know, the real story is too crazy to tell, but I'll try and tell it in a nice way as far as how Tom became a doctor. There was a match in Continental in Alabama.
Okay.
All right. Southeastern wrestling there.
I already like it.
And the guys, they had a guy that was going to be in the corner to be their corner man. And they put this guy on television. Well, when they put the gentleman on television, it sparked some authorities of some sort who might have been looking for the guy that they had put on television. And when the authorities came calling to talk to this gentleman. That gentleman disappeared, and now they needed a corner man. And so they used Tom, and Tom explained that, that he was a doctor, but there was just a little mix up at the pharmacy with his, and they lost his certificate in the mail. And Tom became Dr. Tom because he became the corner man for that match, and then the moniker just stuck from there.
Fun story. Appreciate you sharing that.
Uh-huh.
Christopher Wheeler.
I did it as best I could without implementing too many people.
Christopher Wheeler says, if you could have one wrestler from the old territory days added to the current roster, who would it be and why? Of course, in their prime, not, passed away or old.
Gino Hernandez.
God, that's such a great answer. You think he would have worked well today with today's product?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think Gino would have worked, frankly, in pretty much any era. He was that good and that adaptable.
Chris wants to know, it's been said a lot, it's not who gets over or who goes over, but who gets over. Which of the three best exemplifies that in your mind? Snuka in the cage at MSG versus Morocco, Austin versus Bret at WrestleMania 13, or Foley versus Undertaker at Hell in a Cell? It's got to be Foley, right?
Yeah, really, it's Austin.
Okay.
Because, Foley did it. Yes, Foley definitely did it. And some of what Foley did was unfortunately by mistake with the cage giving way. I don't know that, look, the bump, and yes, I mean, the answer to that question is all those guys did, but if you're going to pick one, it was Austin because that was by design. And by the way, it ain't who goes over, it's who gets over. It's not what you make, it's what you say, kid. Yeah, because there's these things and they call them T-bills. The government will never go broke. You say only 2%. 2% adds up. It was a very intense conversation I had with the Macho Man on a plane one day, literally nose to nose, because we're facing each other in the aisle while we're standing in first class, and Randy wasn't in first class. I kept trying to give him my seat, and he wouldn't take my seat, but he would stand up there and talk to me and take the free drinks.
But he was lecturing you about T-bills.
He's lecturing me about T-bills, and it's not what you make, it's what you save. You gotta invest, Let me give you a tip. The U.S. government will never go broke. Don't go in the stock market. It's a sucker's bet. Yeah, T-bills. But right in my face, nose to nose. Yeah. Standing sideways in the aisle facing each other.
I think Lenny Bakken has better financial advice than that. So look him up if,
yeah. Edward Jones, Lenny Bakken. Yeah. Good guy. And plus, if you're good to him, you'll get a Juicy Lucy. Yeah. Tell Lucy I said hello.
That's Bakken.
Last name Lucy.
Oh, wow. Instagram a wrestling historian wants to know, how would Bruce Prichard have ended the NWO storyline differently in 2002? Of course, by that point it was a dog. You needed to put a bullet in it, but we never really saw a final NWO. I mean, there was no finale. There was no blow off in WCW or the WWF. What would you do differently if you could give a proper death, a funeral to the NWO?
Well, first of all, it never would have made the NWO as big as they did.
Yeah, of course.
It never would have had everyone in the world and Virgil in the NWO. I think that if you had left it to 3 people, possibly 4, but really and truly, if it was just Hall, Nash, and Hogan, I think that would have been ideal. And at the right time, the 3 of them explode, and you go back out to the red and yellow, and let Hall and Nash go off and do their thing. But I would have had Hogan come out of that victorious and going back to the red and yellow. Yeah, the yellow and red is dead. Macho's got a lot to say on this one. Yeah.
Chris wants to know, when Undertaker taped his hands up and sat at Gorilla for WrestleMania 14's main event, what was going through Bruce's mind? Was he legitimately concerned there could be a physical altercation, or did you know cooler heads would prevail?
I felt that basically whatever was going to happen was going to happen. And I also was confident that what we needed to have happen out in the arena was going to happen. I just really felt that everybody was going to get through this. There's a lot of talk, there's a lot of bravado, and a lot of, fuck yous. But at the end, I think that everybody in that ring and everybody involved was professional, and at the end of the day, knew to do the right thing for business.
Here's one from Colby. Does Vince ever kick people out of Gorilla? We hear that talent could gather there for big matches, but it seems like it could get crowded and hard to conduct business. Not asking these days, but back in the day, do you have a story about there being some sort of shoe fly? Get out of here. Thanks for coming by. See ya. Bye-bye.
I used to throw people out, yes, just because it was too loud and I couldn't find people. So, there would be times when they would congregate up there, and you're looking for someone in the next match, and you can't see them, and you're yelling for them, and maybe they're out the door on the other side, but because you've got 15 people in Gorilla, you can't get a hold of them. So, yes, in the middle of shows, I would be known to take my headset off and maybe loudly ask people to get out. Yeah.
Christopher,
not on deck, and you're not next. Get out.
Christopher Wheeler wants to know, what was Vince's reaction when Bischoff challenged him to a fight at Slamboree 98?
If you know him, give him a call. We'll just go fight in a garage somewhere. If he really wants to fight, I'll fight him. Goddamn. But he wasn't going to give them a boost.
No, of course not.
Yeah, it was like, hey, we'll go to a parking lot. We'll go to a garage somewhere. It's just you and I walk in. Whoever walks out, walks out.
I know that a lot of times people say, oh, it's not personal, it's just business. And other people say, oh, there's nothing more personal than business. Do you think Vince took all the Bischoff stuff personally, or did he realize, this is just fucking promotion? Nobody cares.
Yeah, it's both, man. It really and truly is. I don't think he took the fight personally at all.
Yeah.
I think he kind of, laughed that off, but it was like, Vince would like to fight. Okay, you want to go fight? Let's go fight.
P. Diddy, not that one, wants to know, whose idea was it to put the mask back on Rey when he signed with WWE in 2002?
That was everyone's idea. I think that Rey was more marketable and is more marketable with the mask on. Rey Mysterio without the mask was a cute little guy. We could do a lot of stuff. Rey Mysterio with the mask was an attraction. And plus you had merchandise to sell with the mask. You had different designs. You had all these different ways to go versus just Rey without the mask.
Dismal Abysmal has a question that is a little silly.
You're talking about me.
Yeah, that is you. When a wrestler has ring gear in every color imaginable, who decides which ones he wears on a given night? Does he just show up with whatever he wants, or is sometimes creative ringing him up saying, hey, make sure you wear the so-and-so tonight?
No. And, usually you want talent to have a look, and that look is going to be the same each and every night because you've got so many different things from action figures and just what have you that we send out to licensees, and they're going to want that look, and they want the look that's on TV. A good example was John Cena back in the day. John Cena used to wear colors of whatever the local sports team was or college team was, and he had matching trunks, matching boots, and wore a different outfit every single night. And we went to his house to do the Edge vignettes. And I remember his dad showing me these closets full of all of John's gear. He had boots and trunks and knee pads, all matching. Most of them had only been worn one time. That was his gimmick. So it was different. It was the same style, but the colors were synonymous with whatever town he was in.
Rusty Simpson wants to know, if Shawn Michaels didn't get hurt in 1998 and didn't take time off, would it have changed the creative direction for DX? And would he and Austin have worked return programs?
I think so. But we knew, what was it, in January? that Shawn was going away. So at that point, you're not thinking about, what ifs at that point. You're thinking about what you have and getting beyond it. So it was never really thought about because we knew that we had to get to Mania and then Shawn was done.
It is interesting to think about if he doesn't go down, does Triple H become the star he was as quick as he did? If he's not the leader of DX, or would he have wound up in a feud with Shawn? And interesting.
Yeah, it really is. I don't know that Triple H would have become the star that he became at that point in time.
Yeah.
Because Hunter really stepped up to become the leader of DX.
Charles wants to know, how did it come about for Brother Love to referee the tag match with the Hart Foundation in 1988 at the Boston Garden? I asked because I was there that night.
Because I got booked. And I want to say that, trying to think, I don't know if that was a summer program or if that was a holiday program, but there were times that Vince would just book me in things to get me out of the office, really, for no other reason than that. And it's like, well, hey, Brother Love could work here. Make him a referee. Have him go do this. And those were, God, they were a shitload of fun. And I believe it was in Boston. Had to be in Boston. I remember Jim Neidhart had Jacques had Jim Neidhart in like a camel clutch type deal sitting on his back. And Neidhart's eyes are darting back and forth. And I'm in Neidhart's face and I'm at, give up. Do you want to give up? And he just goes, back up and move. And I backed up. And when I did, an ice pick, it just came and barely missed Jim's nose and just stuck right in the mat. Now, had I been face to face with Jim, it probably would have hit me.
And he saw it. And he saw it from that position.
And he saw it and told me to move. And I just thought he was getting ready to do something. But I backed off and I looked down and was like, holy fuck, that would have hurt. Just stuck in the mat and I just reached down, pulled it out, and threw it out of the ring. We kept going.
Is that the most dangerous thing you ever saw thrown in a ring before?
At me?
At anybody?
Oh, God, man. The bottles and the shit in Mexico were terrifying. Because they would throw, like, beer bottles and Coke bottles.
You were there for that?
Sir?
You were there for that?
Yes.
What match was it?
Well, it was like the first or second match because it was the night that Val Venus was Steel and he was working with Rayo Jalisco.
Oh, so not a WWF show. You
won the WWF show. No.
Got it.
And but they came to me for a finish for the match. And they wanted to introduce me and shit and blah blah blah. And I said, if you want me to, I said, let's do something where I screw Rayo. And you think that Rayo's going to have to take his mask off. Let's do the whole presentation and we'll get in the ring and then let your official come down and say, no, bullshit. He did it, meaning me. And Rayo knocks me on my ass. Boom, restart the match. Rayo catches Steel with something real quick. Bing. New referee comes in. 1, 2, 3. Now Steele's got to take off his mask. You take it off and you reveal, oh my God, it's Val Venus. And that's why the WWE guy didn't want him to get unmasked. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching the matches start. And in the second match, the rain of bottles that came down. And I don't remember what the match was. But I'm sitting there with Victor Quinones. I said, hey, man, about that finish, I don't think I want to be involved. I'm good. Just go ahead and beat... Go ahead and beat Val and we'll be on our way.
Postomania brother wants to know, was there ever a time when Bruce was in Gorilla on headset when Monsoon was on commentary with either Bobby or Jesse and he literally laughed out loud at some of their back and forth? Did you ever have a line on commentary that really got you tickled?
God, too many to count. Yeah, I mean, between Bobby and Gino, it was absolutely hilarious where we would sit there. And they didn't do commentary live for the syndicated matches. We did all that back in the studio. But for a pay-per-view, yeah, there were always some good shit that they would sneak in here and there. But Bobby and Monsoon had all of us busting up constantly. Just too much with Heenan's one-liners and Monsoon's setups for him.
It's a fun time to go back and watch those old matches and hear the old commentary. Dawson Fields writes, I just started old Monday Night Raw and Nitro episodes from 1995. And I notice on some episodes of Raw that you're in the same location 2 to 4 weeks at a time. How long did those tapings take, and how big of an impact did it have on the live audience?
Sometimes, man, if we did two Raws or multiple syndicated shows, sometimes those tapings we'd go into, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes. They were brutal. And, we would do, for example, you would do 3 weeks of Superstars, which is 3 one-hour shows, which is 44 minutes of content, which wrestling-wise and in the ring, probably, 28 minutes. So that in and of itself is 2 hours pretty much for 4 of those. And then you had shows or matches that we would do for Primetime Wrestling and All American for the cable shows that didn't air anywhere else but on cable. We would run those at, 15 to 20 minutes apiece. So you'd have probably 3 of those. That's another hour. Then you would have your on-camera opens that you would have to shoot. And then you would have different interviews and things you would have to shoot. And sometimes things would just get bogged down and would slow you down. So it could be painful. And if you're there to see Hulk Hogan versus Killer Khan, and you're not going to see Hulk Hogan all night long till the very end, and you brought little Johnny to see his hero, Hulk Hogan, and you've already seen Killer Khan at least twice during the night for a squash match. It's like, when the hell is Hogan coming out? And then Hogan came out, they popped, King Cancun, had a pace, said J, said P, leg drop, next.
Was that sort of the protocol at the time? Like the story is Hogan wanted to get back to the hotel before room service shut down. So he would have his match right before intermission. You guys would put tickets on sale at intermission for the follow-up and go ahead and announce the main event based on whatever happened in Hogan's match. Was that the formula for house shows or live events? And then for TV tapings, sorry, Hulk, but you're on dead last.
Yeah, but that wasn't so Hulk could go back to get room service. And I'm sure Hulk has said that.
Wait, no, I just said it was that he enjoyed that perk. But the real reason is you wanted to sell tickets.
Yeah, it was more to sell tickets for the next event. So you could shoot your angle before intermission and they say, oh my God, and next time we will be here.
Yes.
Hulk Hogan. And tickets available right now in the front box office. Get your tickets in advance.
Now we're going to take a brief intermission. By the way, tickets on sale for Boss Man Hogan next month in a cage. Yeah. Chris says, if the rope break didn't happen in the 1990 tag match between the Rockers and the Hart Foundation and the Rockers remain tag champions, would Bret and Jim have gotten booked as singles? Could we have actually seen Bret win the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania 7? That's interesting. If the Rockers do wind up keeping the belt because the rope break thing doesn't happen, does that change the trajectory of Bret Hart as a singles competitor?
Sure as hell could have, because that was, one of the things that we were looking to do was to split up the Hart Foundation and go singles with them.
Adam Arpin says, were there any discussions in 2002 about trickling Hall, Nash, and Hogan back into the WWE individually, or Hall and Nash as a tag team, but not the NWO? Or was the idea always just the NWO?
It had many incarnations. So, there was talk of only bringing Hogan back. There was talk of only bringing Hall and Nash back, one end or the other. So it was a lot of different incarnations. I think that Vince wanted to bring all 3 of them back, and felt that the three of them as the NWO was the strongest attraction.
Captain Chris says, it's well known that you guys had to pay Marvel Comics for the use of the Hulk name. Did you have to pay Lucasfilms for the use of the Vader name? If not, why not?
Don't know why not. We didn't.
Because he already had an agreement.
Use Darth Vader.
Right.
You use Stinky Vader.
Okay. Stinky Vader. That's what you're going with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody showed me a picture of Leon and someone the other day. And I was like, wow, man, because he was all sweaty and had his gloves on their shoulder. And I said, man, do you have any idea the putrid smell coming off of those gloves right now that poor son of a bitch is having to breathe in and out?
You're mean and hurtful. I'm
not mean and hurtful. I love Leon, and Leon was a great guy. Leon just was a little smelly.
His gear was.
Yes, his gear was very smelly.
Chris says, in Bret's 93 episode, it was mentioned Bret versus Yoko in a steel cage at Anaheim drew over 15,000 people. How closely was Vince monitoring house shows, and would things like this factor in his decision to put the title on Bret at WrestleMania 10?
Monitor house shows every single day. Yeah, it's business. You see what your business is every day, and house shows were one way to establish, what was working and what wasn't. And if you had an attraction in there and it didn't draw, then you got to look at the attraction, got to look at what else is going on in the market. But yes, they're monitored every single day.
And a lot of times, based on what we've read online, it feels as if the data that you guys would use to research something like that, like who's over, give them a little more of this, give them a little less of that, is who's on top, AKA who's selling tickets, who's selling merch, and who has the best ratings, right? Is that sort of I'm not saying now, I mean, back in the day, man, this quarter hour and these shirts, and when this guy wasn't on this card, we announced him and we got to bump this percentage wise. That's the stuff that tells you the feedback from the audience, people voting with their wallet, right?
Yeah. It's when people get out of their home, they buy tickets and they load up the car and they take the family down to the arena, and then they buy merch and they buy a hot dog and soda, and they actually make an effort to come to see your event. Television is a little bit different. If you promote something in advance, then you can attribute ratings to that. If people are tuning in just for that, you see a bump. But ratings are more of a monitoring, and you look for trends, because how does a television audience know what's coming up next? You can tell them, but they already have to be engaged for you to tell them what's next. Now you can promote, if you're promoting ahead week to week and you see big bumps with certain things and you see a trend, then ratings mean something. But what really meant something is people getting up, loading up the car, coming out, buying a ticket, and participating in a live event or pay-per-view.
Joe Miller says, a lot's been said about Vince McMahon throughout his decades-long run as owner/chairman of WWE. He's always talked about regularly, good or bad, but never indifferent. Do you think Vince is aware of the constant chatter about him? Not necessarily these days, but back, we'll call it the boom of the internet. Allowed wrestling fans to get online, and there'd be chat rooms and message boards and all that jazz. Vince feels like a guy that, and you and I've even joked that he's sort of unplugged from all that stuff. Like, not just that stuff. I just mean like, how much does a gallon of milk cost type of stuff, because he's so far in the bubble. He has a different life and he lives WWE, but he's probably not aware. I'm just asking, of this constant chatter. I mean, there's no way he could keep up or give a shit, right?
Yeah. Vince was busy running a business.
Yeah.
Didn't have the time. Oh, somebody said something about me. Does it affect business?
Right.
Yeah. Next.
Yeah. Was it the president?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael wants to know, when you hear Briscoe pronounce Vince McMahon with his overemphasis on the last name, is that really how he says it, or is he just playing it up for the cameras? Of course, that's how he says it. He's from Oklahoma.
Of course, that's how he says it. He's from Oklahoma. 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 He's from O We know that the only thing that keeps Texas from falling into the Gulf of Mexico is Oklahoma sucks.
Hey, speaking of Oklahoma sucking, I'm sure you and Vince have had a lot of conversation in the more recent weeks about
Oklahoma sucking?
About Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC. Where do you stand on that, Bruce? Are you excited to see what Oklahoma and Texas do in the SEC?
Are they going to play Alabama?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's bad news for y'all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How so? You think Texas is going to beat Alabama?
Oh, God, yes. Please. Alabama finally has some competition. I mean, not from the cheaters that are OU, the Sooners, the ones that cheat and go in the middle of the night to steal land.
Okay. But the Longhorns all of a sudden are
well,
good.
The Longhorns, God bless Texas. I don't give a shit.
I was going to say, do you even know the head coach of the Texans? I mean, of Texas? No.
Bear Bryant.
I love you. Rich, this is real. Years ago, I'm going to say like 5 years ago, I took Bruce to an Alabama game and we had a great time. And he would intentionally cheer at the wrong time. So, you know, we're in the Alabama section, of course. And anytime Alabama gets a first down, everybody pulls their shakers out and Roll Tide. And he would wait until it's dead silence and he'd yell, home run, or some random shit like that.
Well, I was happy.
Yeah.
I was happy because they they hit a double or whatever they did.
Then you would start jumping up and down when like the referee threw a flag and you'd be like, that's good, right? I mean, just random. It's tremendous.
So Nick Sabian is the governor of Texas, right?
Yes, you got it. You got it all down pat. Richie wants to know, what are the differences between hiring creative teams now versus the Attitude Era or even back in the late 80s? Was there a shift when the company went public to find certain backgrounds, or has there always been certain things that Vince looked for in his creative room?
There were no creative room in the 80s. And in the 90s, it was Pat and Vince. And then it was me, Pat and Vince. And then Russo came in. There weren't teams until the 2000s. But that was just more of looking for people that had an aptitude for wanting to work in this.
Damien writes, was Test ever considered for a main event push? He was up against the McMahon-Helmsley era in late 99, beginning 2000, and was the Iron Man of the Rumble in 2000, but he was never a main event guy.
I think that we looked at Test, with high hopes of being a main event guy. I think that probably the thing that hurt Test in some ways in the very beginning was Vince Russo making a comparison to him and Kevin. He's going to be the next Kevin Nash, bro. Look at him. And I think to Shawn and everybody, it was like, he's no Kevin Nash. But Test was young. And at that time, Test came in very young with very little experience. And I think somebody asked him, hey, man, how many matches have you had? And he counted and I think he had 21 matches. This fucking guy's had 21 matches and he's in the main event on Raw. But I do think that, in some ways that was good. Just sometimes, man, you got to just get new talent out there and go. He had a great look, had some charisma, natural charisma. But we did have high hopes for Test early on.
Joel Kidder wants to know, do you think Ken Shamrock would have been a world champion had he stuck around for the brand extension / ruthless aggression era?
I think Ken definitely could have been. You look at all of his attributes, and Ken was a great worker, and you can't teach the kind of intensity that Ken Shamrock has just naturally.
Yeah.
Sitting in a room, Shamrock has intensity. So had he stuck around, yeah, there was definitely a possibility.
J.M. Wagner wants to know, when Shawn Waltman returned to the WWE in 1998, was anyone in the office against him coming in? You mentioned years later, some in the office were against Hall and Nash returning in 2002 due to their clique past. Did that apply to Shawn Waltman?
I think that there was a little bit of trepidation just because of, how Shawn had left before. He left with those guys and being down there. But at the same time, it was, hey man, let's give him a chance. Let's go. I don't think Shawn carried as much baggage as the rest of the guys did.
Paul wants to know, when you would go out to dinner with Vince, or maybe go to a bar with Vince, and someone recognized him and asked for a photo or autograph, would he oblige, or what did that look like?
Yeah, he'd oblige. I mean, Vince has always been nice to people when they come up and ask him for stuff. And, unless, you're busy or you're running and trying to catch a flight, or you want to get out of Dodge and you're going somewhere, I think that Vince has always taken time to stop and sign autographs and say hello to people.
GJ Refill says, what's the best theme of all time, and why is it Jive Soul Bro?
The best theme of all time, the best musical entrance is what we're talking about?
Yeah.
It's going to be probably Austin or Ultimate Warrior.
Jive Soul Bro is pretty good, though.
Jive Soul Bro, just a Jive Soul Bro. A Jive Soul Bro. You never get nothing in the end. Just a Jive Soul Bro. A Jive Soul Bro. Something.
Darren Kavanaugh wants to know, what's your favorite In Your House pay-per-view and why?
I'll tell you, probably the first one, because we gave away a freaking house.
Yeah.
And sitting in a room going, what could make this special? What if we gave away In Your House? What if we gave away a house? And sending Jerry Briscoe to go buy a house that day.
That's a sentence you don't hear all the time.
And yeah, it was in the call back. It's like, yeah, I got a nice house. Here, I'll send you pictures. And that was it.
Follow-up question from Darren here. What would have been the plans for the Ultimate Maniacs after Survivor Series in 1992? Of course, we know it didn't happen. Down goes Warrior. So the Ultimate Maniacs are no more. What would that have looked like cruising into 93, do you think? I know it sounds crazy, but is there a chance they could have broken up and it been Savage Warrior at WrestleMania 9? And I know you'd already done it at 7.
Yeah, I don't know. Because
they could have wrestled Hogan and Beefcake.
Ooh, now that would have been hot.
It's a lot of star power.
Goddamn right. Yeah, I don't know. And you look at that, and I just come back. So thinking about, I'm still catching up on the whys and whatnots and everything. And then Warrior was gone so fast that it's like, okay, next.
Dewdrop wants to know, is there any area in particular where Bruce actually agrees with Dave Meltzer when it comes to business?
No, because I don't know that Dave Meltzer understands what business is.
Oh, come on.
I don't think that Dave Meltzer understands that business is to make money, and that I just don't. I think that his basic philosophy and viewpoints are so polar opposites of normal human beings that probably not. And that's probably a mental block in that I don't feel that whatever his job that he thinks he does, I don't think he's good at it. And I don't think he's a good person. And don't think we will ever agree.
Mayo Slinger wants to know, Bruce, tell us who came up with the hog shit / pig pen matches with the Godwins, and why was it you?
Why was what?
The hog pen matches.
Love the hog pen matches. What's wrong with the hog pen matches?
Well, there's doo-doo in them.
Organic doo-doo?
Ravid.
Those pigs were organic pigs that only ate organic, caca.
Ravid wants to know, why was Bruce never considered to be an on-screen stooge in the Attitude Era like Briscoe and Patterson and Sarge?
Because I had a real job.
Oh, God.
Well, no, I mean, really and truly at that time, it was Briscoe and I that did Gorilla and did all that stuff. And we had tried to train so many different people to do that just didn't work out. So It was Jerry, and I was just never considered.
Denovius in the morning wants to know, how come there was never consideration to bring in the Harlem Heat as a tag team instead of just Booker T by himself?
I think by that time that Stevie Ray had wanted to move on and retire, what have you, and Booker was doing good as a single.
S-Man 290 says, my dad used to know a man named John Howard, who I think started with Vince in 1984. Do you have any stories on him? Does that name ring a bell? It's not somebody I've heard of before.
Yeah, John was a salesman in the New York sales office. And other than seeing John every once in a while at a Nappy convention or the Hulk Hogan No Holds Barred premiere, didn't have a whole lot to do with John.
You gotta get excited about saving people all those dollars. They can limousine ride and jet fly now with that extra cash.
And they can style and profile with a quick 10-minute phone call right now to 425-0105.
That's 425-0105. Woo!
SaveWithConrad.com. Jeff wants to know, were there any big name celebrities over the years you guys really wanted to do business with, but they either weren't interested or you couldn't because of scheduling conflicts? And if so, what were some of the ideas for them?
John Madden. John Madden was, the Moby Dick, man. He was the big whale that we couldn't just land. And John doesn't fly. So anywhere that John went, John would have to go by bus. And inevitably, whenever we would have WrestleMania, we would always contact John and say, hey, we're a year out. Here's where we're going to be. Are you going to be anywhere near there that you could get there by bus? And John would look at his schedule or say, hey, I've got to get closer to it. And it just never worked out. John did some things with us remotely, and we would go to him. We had Bobby Heenan that he put as a manager of his All Madden team, the first manager ever put on the All Madden team. I became friendly with John. He was a great guy, but it just never worked out. He was the one that we always wanted to do color commentary, bring in for a WrestleMania and have Madden do commentary on a WrestleMania. And unfortunately, never worked out. Now, there was also the time that Ed Cohen called Al Pacino's office and his people and asked how much it would take for Al Pacino to appear at WrestleMania. And the agent or whoever said, well, how much are we talking here? And Ed, having no idea, just was like, well, let's say $10,000.
Oh, God.
And he says, well, Al Pacino doesn't walk across the street for $10,000. He says, well, how much does it take to get Al Pacino to walk across the street? And then the agent hung up on him. That was hilarious.
That is a great line.
But yeah.
Fernum Schnavitz wants to know, Bruce, were there ever any on-screen characters you pitched for yourself that didn't make it to TV or that Vince rejected? Obviously, we know the Brother Love and Rio Rogers stories, but are there any ideas that wound up on the cutting room floor?
Well, first of all, Rio Rogers was not my idea. It was a horrible idea. It was a Jerry Jarrett idea. It was the drizzling shits, and I hated it, and I did not pitch it. I actually pitched to do Bruce at one point when we were looking to bring the Undertaker back and to dye my hair like a dark auburn red kind of. And not be Brother Love, but just to basically be Bruce and to break that fourth wall and talk to Mark. That didn't go over very well and didn't get beyond the pitch.
Here's one from Bobby Blue. What a great question this is. Now that all the billionaires are going to space, is Mr. McMahon going to become a Space Club billionaire?
Yeah, we're going, I think, in February.
We're
to the moon, Alice.
I love that you're going to be in space booking fucking TV.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. We got to write TV. We got to do creative. So.
God damn, pal. They don't have cable up here. We've got to get down.
Shit. Wi-Fi sucks in here.
I thought the Peacock the Peacock app would work better up here. We're in fucking space. Doesn't it all come from a satellite? Jesus.
Right there, I can see the damn thing. Anybody got the password?
Here, Bruce, log me in, Val.
Yeah.
So great, dude. The Beer Baron says the LA Coliseum approached WWE prior to WrestleMania 6, but Toronto won out. If WrestleMania 6 had been in the LA Coliseum in 1990 instead of the Sky Dome, do you think that could have drawn the 100,000 crowd?
Possibly, yeah. I think that, and we're talking with the same attraction of Hulk versus Warrior. I think that you probably would have had a better chance of doing that in the Coliseum a year before with that attraction.
Well, boys and girls, we hope you guys have enjoyed a very special Ask Bruce Anything. Bruce, I'm getting pretty excited, man. SummerSlam is going to be here before you know it. It's been really cool to see John Cena back. Now Goldberg's back. It's a fun time to be a wrestling fan right now. And from your perspective, is it a fun time to be in the wrestling business as well?
I always have fun, Conrad, by God, no matter what the hell I'm doing.
Well, some of the time, maybe.
All the time.
Next week, though, we're going to be
son of a gun.
doing something kind of fun next week. Believe it or not, I can't believe this is real. But next week will be the 25th anniversary of when Farouk Assad debuted. Ron Simmons comes over to the World Wrestling Federation, and the 25th anniversary is next week. So we're going to talk about Farouk's whole run with the WWF and that famous story about how you guys just had a call every year until it finally happened. What kind of stories do you think we might get into next week when we talk about your old pal, Ron Simmons?
Who we ran into at the hotel when we were having our ultra secret meeting with Ron Simmons in Atlanta, Georgia at the Marriott. That was an interesting day.
In 2 weeks, we'll be back talking all things SummerSlam 2001, and then we'll wind down the month of August with SummerSlam 06. September should be an interesting month. We got Bam Bam Bigelow, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Unforgiven 06, and In Your House Mind Games on tap. Man, I think we're on a fun streak right now. Hope you guys enjoyed Trish last week. Hope you dug Ask Bruce Anything today. We'll be back next week with Farouk. By the way, you get all these shows early and ad-free over at adfreeshows.com. And if you've got a question for us about Farouk, ask it on Twitter. It's at Prichard Show. I also want to mention, if you want to introduce our podcast to maybe a new listener, but they're a little overwhelmed with the idea that, wow, some of these shows are like 3 hours, direct them to the YouTube channel. Lots of fun little clips over there. And hit that subscribe button. It's totally free and ready to hook you up. Send your hate tweets to at Bruce Prichard and at Hey It's Conrad. And we'll see you next week right here on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard.
Rock on.
Hey, we made it through with only one phone call today.
CBN. That's because I turned it off.
Oh, what a novel idea. See you next week, boys and girls.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.